Imagine a love so fierce it turns wildfire to ash, debt collectors to dust, and a town's scorn into a symphony of strength. Welcome to a story that'll set your soul ablaze. Step back into tales of kindness, where Clara and Silas prove that true heart can conquer anything. Like, comment, and subscribe to witness a romance forged in fire. She crossed the rugged frontier, with dreams tucked tight in her chest, only to hear she was too heavy to be cherished. Yet what unfolded next stunned an entire village. In the bitter chill of 1883, a warm-souled woman named Clara Henshaw abandoned all she knew, her spinning wheel, her grandmother's embroidered shawl, even her final coins, for a whispered vow of love from a stranger. But when she climbed off the train in Frost Hollow, Montana, no tender welcome waited. Instead, she faced cold stares, hushed scorn, and a shattering dismissal from the man who'd lured her west. The one who'd penned sweet promises, who'd painted a future bright with hope, sized her up and muttered, "You're not what I pictured." Crushed and cast aside, Clara stood alone in a strange town, no funds, no roof, no path forward. Just as despair crept in, a shadowy, well-off figure spotted a spark in her no one else dared see. What he did next flipped her world, and the village, on its head. What do you reckon happened after that brutal rejection? Hang tight to find out. This ending's a jaw-dropper. The winter of 1883 gripped the land like a stubborn spectre, snow muffling the earth, the Montana sky sprawling vast and untamed. A lone train rattled into sleepy Frost Hollow that icy dawn, hauling little of note save for a woman with a fluttering spirit and a satchel brimming with faith. Clara Henshaw, a weaver from Ohio, bore gentle eyes and a soul too grand for the cramped cages folks tried to shove her into. They'd labeled her plenty, tough, stout, broad-framed, but beneath her soft edges and quiet grins hid a woman whose fire outshone what most could fathom. She'd answered an ad, a tender pledge from one Amos Reed, a rancher craving a partner to warm his hearth and raise a brood. His letters were kind, deliberate, never hinting at looks, and that lit a dangerous ember in Clara. Hope. She sold it all. Her grandma's shawl, her loom, even her copper needle, packing only her skills, her dreams, and a hand-woven blanket for the trek west. And so her journey kicked off. The train screeched to a halt in the middle of nowhere. Clara stepped down, her breath twisting into the frost like fragile yarn. The town was tinier than she'd dreamed. No fanfare, no flowers, just wind and white. She lingered, 10 minutes, then 20, until a lanky rider trotted up, his face shadowed by a brimmed hat. No grin, no words, just a glance like she was a misdelivered parcel. Without a proper hello, he hefted her bag onto his cart and grunted, "Get in." That was Amos Reed. Later, by his shed, he spat out what her gut already feared. "You're not what I pictured." Her voice quaked. I don't follow." "You're decent," he said. "Flat as the plains. But I figured on someone slighter, daintier." His words stung like hail on raw flesh. Clara didn't plead or snap, she just turned, her steps cracking the snow like a dirge. No ticket back, no scheme, just her and the gale. At the town's edge, she snagged a drafty loft above a druggist's shop, chilly, but hers with a door to shut tight. With her last pennies, she secured 2 weeks and set to weaving. Gossip raced through Frost Hollow quick as wildfire. The spurned mail-order lass, "The hefty one," they sneered. Some smirked, some pitied, most ignored. Clara held her head high, mending for families with ragged coats and empty bellies, trading bread for scraps at the tavern. Each dawn she knotted her scarf, cinched her coat, and met the day with steady grace. Then came the morning she strolled into Grayson's trade emporium, the town's beating pulse, alive with chatter, chuckles, and coin clinks. Weekdays were hushed, though, and that's when Clara slipped in. Basket swinging, hunting thread or salt, that's when she caught his eye. Silas Grayson. Folks pegged him as the mild-mannered shopkeep in the brick house up the ridge. Few knew he was a tycoon who ditched the glitz after his wife's grim end. trading penthouses for a hamlet's quiet and maybe his own redemption. He loomed behind the counter, lanky in a vest, no frills, just sharp smarts and a tone smooth as aged bourbon. Their first glance locked when he spied the novel poking from her. Basket, tales of joy and triumph. Happy endings? He asked low. She dipped her chin. Sometimes I need to trust they're real. His lips quirked, barely but true. Might have a couple you'd fancy. Next visit, a book sat wrapped in craft paper. No cost. No fuss, just a silent offering. Bring it back when you're through, he murmured. Something stirred. She swapped the book with a loaf wrapped in muslin. He slid her another, then a quip, then a chat. Days rolled into weeks. Clara never spoke of Amos. Silas never pried. But each time she crossed that threshold, a knot in his frame loosened, and hers did too. Beneath his crisp exterior, he glimpsed in Clara what Frost Hollow missed. Not a shape to scorn, but a spirit worth treasuring. And she saw in him not a magnate or mourner, but a man soft in the shadows where it counted. By spring, Clara'd woven more than threads. She'd threaded herself into the town's weave, and maybe someone's soul. But a storm brewed, unseen. When Silas Grayson's true name, Silas T. Grayson, the vanished titan, spilled out, it'd test all she held dear about love, value, and her own bones. Would she bolt again, or had she landed where she belonged? Ever been judged for what you can't change? Think love trumps looks? What did you do as Clara? If this hits your core, like, share, and drop a star in the comments. Frost Hollow's snow melted to mush, wild blooms poking through like timid truths. Life trudged on, steady and sure, and so did Clara. She wove by day, devoured love stories by night, often ones Silas left wordlessly at the Emporium. Their talks stretched, softened. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they just stood, easy in the quiet. Yet Clara couldn't shake who she was here. The tossed-aside bride, the too-much woman. Silas. Just a trader, she thought, until the day it all cracked open. It started with an outsider, a dapper man in a sleek coat, stepping from a carriage too fine for Frost Hollow's ruts. Silver watch, glossy boots, city-bred sneer. He strode into the shop like he ruled it. Clara was there, fingering yarn. Silas met him stiffly, air thick with unspoken weight. They muttered behind the counter. She tried not to hear, but the man's voice spiked. You can't dodge forever, Mr. Grayson. Your empire's restless. They want you in Chicago. Clara stilled. Mr. Grayson, as in Grayson Industries, rails, coal, steamships. Her gaze darted to Silas. No, Silas T. Grayson, the mogul who'd ghosted the spotlight after his wife's fatal wreck. Her fingers trembled. Silas saw, his face gentling, but he didn't dodge it. That night, Clara perched by her loft's tiny window, staring into dusk. A titan. He'd handed her tales, grins, and warmth, but never his secret. Her gut churned. What did folks say now? She was after his gold, a silly dreamer. She skipped the shop next day and the next, stitching in solitude. When Widow Tate dropped off extra meal, she gave Clara a knowing nod. He's off, you know, keeps eyeing the door like someone's missing. Clara chewed her lip. That night, a knock. Silas stood there, book and bread in hand. Not here to excuse, he said soft. Here to hear you, if you'll have me. She wavered, then let him in. In her cramped nook he seemed smaller, not a titan, just the man who knew her favorite pages. Should have said, he began. After she passed, I fled, sick of fake faces. Frost Hollow was real. You were real. Her throat caught. Why me? His eyes held hers. You didn't posture, didn't care who I was, just saw me. That's more than I hoped to find. A hush fell, warm, not heavy. I don't want your riches, she breathed. Never did. I know, he said. That's why I gave you my truth. Weeks on, Frost Hollow hummed with talk. Some bitter, he's slumming. Some sweet, maybe he sees her shine. Clara tuned it out, tuning to Silas. They roamed the streets, sat on stoops, swapped tales of loss and longing. Silence a balm, not a blade. He didn't flaunt wealth, just gifted her wool, rare spices, a carved hairpin with her initials. Bit by bit, her heart, once splintered, knit anew. Then one dusk, as the sky blushed gold, a twist hit. Clara was at the shop eyeing buttons when a prim woman in silk swept in, heels clicking, curls tight, lips crimson. "I'm here for my betrothed," she snapped. "Silas Grayson." Clara's chest caved. The room hushed. Silas stepped up, stone-faced. "Lydia," he said slow, "that ended years back." She smirked. "You vanished. That's different." Clara spun to flee, but Silas's voice rang out fierce. "Clara, wait!" She halted. He moved to her, eyes blazing. Fear, maybe love. "I was adrift once. Lydia's old news. You, Clara, you're my tomorrow." The woman scoffed. "Her? A thread peddler?" Silas didn't flinch. "A woman with more guts and grace than I've ever met." Lydia stormed off. Clara stood, tears pricking, not from hurt, but something blooming, unnamed. Ever had a friend hide their real self? Was Silas right to cloak his past? Would you forgive him as Clara? Comment yes for second shots. Tell us your move in her boots. For once, Clara Henshaw felt truly seen, not for flaws or fancies, but for her raw, real self. Silas's public stand shifted frost hollow. Some thawed, some stayed frosty, but it didn't matter. When a man of millions chose a woman the world had shrugged off, it spun a new yarn, courage quiet, love deep, and it was just the start. Silas didn't rush her, no grand gestures, no jewel-crusted rings, just dawn strolls, giggles over scorched bread, books traded like whispered promises. Slow, true, alive. But not all let the past lie. One crisp morn as spring tickled the slopes, Clara found a letter at her door. No sender. Inside, a Chicago clipping screamed, "Grayson legacy falters. Tycoon's tie to jilted weaver stirs fury." A grainy shot of her, basket in arm, at the market. It sliced her open, her history, her frame, her lowly roots, all flayed bare, branding her a threat to his name. That night, Silas arrived with a tale and her favorite scone. She didn't smile. "I won't ruin you," she choked, eyes wet. He sat steady. "You're why I've got anything worth holding." "Silas," she rasped, "I don't care about their stocks. I care about us." But the heat didn't cool. Soon the post brimmed with venom. Vows to sink deals, sue, strip him bare if he wed her, nothing. Silas read them, unflinching, till a note from his late wife's kin begged him not to tarnish her memory with a lesser match. That one cut deep. He paced the ridge for hours. Clara let him wrestle it alone. But he came back, eyes fierce, sure. "I forged an empire," he said low, "but it's dust if I can't build a life with someone who crafts hope from scraps." He clasped her hand. "I want a fresh start, not my title, not my coin, just me." Defying all, Silas Grayson shed his board seat, sold stakes, gifted fields for schools in Frost Hollow and beyond. "Love," he wrote his investors, "is my truest venture." Some jeered, some cheered, but none forgot. Clara didn't need to shift herself anymore. Their wedding was small, sacred, by the shop's back meadow, under a sky soft with clouds and budding laurels. She wore a beige gown she'd woven, threads of her story in every seam. Silas, a plain jacket and that grin she drew out. They vowed barefoot in the dew. His, "I didn't seek you, but you found me." Hers, "I thought I fell short, but you showed me I'm whole." Their kiss swayed with the breeze. Even the gruffest locals blinked back tears. A year on, the emporium grew. Clara taught weaving in a nook, threading resilience into young hands. Silas tilled rows out back, dirt under his nails, his laugh bolder than ever. She shunned finery. But at night, head on his chest, she'd murmur, "Never saw this coming." He'd always reply, "You aim too low." They aged in Frost Hollow. Not loud, not lavish, just rich. Rich in tales, in calm, in proof that love, real love, isn't born of gold or flawless starts. It's two cracked souls picking each other, over and over, against the world's roar. When Clara's blanket, the one she'd once given him, stitched with her essence, wore thin, Silas folded it, kissed its heart, and whispered, "Here's where I woke up." Let's take a break, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You're right, Clara and Silas's story doesn't stop there. Buckle up for more twists and triumphs that'll keep you hooked. Welcome back to Tales of Kindness, where every chapter proves compassion conquers all. Smash that like, leave your thoughts, and subscribe to stay in the tale. The seasons spun on in Frost Hollow, each day weaving Clara Henshaw and Silas Grayson tighter into the town's fabric and each other's lives. Their quiet days of stitching and sewing weren't the end, but a prelude to a storm brewing beyond the hills. One crisp autumn noon, as leaves blazed red and gold, a shadow fell over their simple bliss. A rider galloped in, dust swirling, bearing a sealed writ from Chicago. Silas's old world wasn't done with him yet. The letter bore the wax crest of Grayson Industries Board, a summons, sharp and cold. They'd sold his shares, sure, but now they claimed he'd breached some buried clause, tying him still to the Empire's helm. "Return or face ruin," it warned, "and bring no baggage." That meant Clara. Her hands stilled over her loom, the air thick. Silas's jaw tightened, but his eyes found hers. "They don't get to write our story," he said, voice like iron wrapped in velvet. Clara nodded, though doubt gnawed. Could she anchor him without dragging him under? That night they sat by the hearth, her blanket across their knees, plotting not surrender but defiance. Silas penned a reply, terse, unyielding. "I've chosen my life. Sue if you must." The rider left at dawn, and Frost Hollow held its breath. Weeks later, a caravan rolled in, not traders, but lawyers, sleek as vultures, with papers to seize the Emporium, his last tie to wealth. The town rallied. Widow Tate baked bread, the smith forged locks, kids scrawled signs, "Leave Silas be." But the suits pressed hard, claiming Clara's lowly influence tainted his legacy. She overheard, and her heart sank. Had she cost him too much? Silas caught her packing a bag, eyes red. "Don't you dare," he growled, soft but fierce. "You're not my burden, you're my backbone." She stayed, and they faced the fray together. The lawyers camped a week, but Frost Hollow's grit wore them thin. Doors shut, prices tripled, whispers turned to jeers. Then came the twist, a telegram from an old ally, a board defector who'd kept Silas's secret vote. One call and the suits slunk off, tails tucked. The Emporium stood, and so did they. But peace was fleeting. Spring brought a stranger, a woman, frail but fiery, claiming to be Silas's sister, long lost to a family feud. "I've tracked you," she said, voice trembling. "Our father's dead, and his will names you, or me." Her fortune dangled, but with strings. Return to Chicago, alone or forfeit it all. Clara saw the flicker in his eyes, duty, guilt, a past unburied. "Go if you need to," she whispered, throat tight. Silas paced the meadow till dusk, then turned to her. "Money's just noise," he said. "You're my silence, my home." He tore the will, sent the sister off with a pouch of coin and a note. "I've all I need." Frost Hollow exhaled. But Clara wondered, had she trapped him in her small world? Summer answered. Silas built a loom shed beside the store, painted it blue, her favorite hue, and hung a sign, "Henshaw's Threads." "This is us," he said, grinning. "Not their game, ours." Years rolled and their roots deepened. The shed buzzed with girls learning Clara's craft. Silas's garden fed half the town. They grayed together, lines etching tales of battles won, not with fists or gold, but with stubborn, quiet love. One twilight, as stars pricked the sky, Clara traced the frayed blanket seams. "Think we've got more chapters?" she mused. Silas chuckled, pulling her close. "Darlin', we're just warming up." And he was right. Trouble and joy still waited, but they'd face it hand in hand. What's next for them? Guess below. Has life ever tested your love like this? Drop a yes if you'd fight for what matters. And tell us, would you stay or chase the cash? This tale's alive. Hit like, share it wide. And drop a 200 if you're craving more. Where you tuned in from? Let's keep the kindness rolling. Someone out there needs this spark. The saga of Clara and Silas presses on, pulling you deeper into a whirlwind of heart and hustle. Welcome back to Tales of Kindness, where every moment proves that love's the toughest thread of all. Give us a like, share your take, and subscribe to ride this wave. Frost Hollow settled into a rhythm, the blue loom shed and Silas's sprawling garden rooting. Clara and him ever firmer into the earth and each other. But fate's never content to let a good story rest. One muggy summer eve, as crickets sang and the air hung heavy, a boy stumbled into town, mud-streaked and panting. "Fire!" he gasped. "The ridge is burning!" A wildfire, born of lightning and dry grass, roared toward Frost Hollow, licking at the edges of their world. Clara and Silas didn't flinch. She rallied the women, soaking blankets in the creek. He led the men, digging trenches with shovels and grit. Smoke stung their lungs, flames danced close, but they held the line, hours blurring into a haze of sweat and shouts. By dawn, the fire faltered, beaten back by a town united. The shed stood scorched but whole. The garden smoked but survived. Exhausted, Clara leaned into Silas, ash smudging her cheek. "We're tougher than I thought," she rasped. He kissed her brow. "Always were." Rebuilding sparked a new fire in them. Silas carved benches from charred oak. Clara wove tapestries of the blaze, threads of red and gold telling their stand. The town buzzed, calling it the night we held. But scars lingered. A merchant, bitter over lost stock, pointed at Silas. "Your fancy past brought this curse. City man playing farmer." Whispers grew. Had Silas's old life summoned ruin? Clara bristled, but he just squeezed her hand. "Let 'em talk. We know our truth." Fall swept in, crisp and golden, and with it a letter, creased-stained, postmarked New Orleans, Silas's sister Mara again. "I took your coin," it read, "but father's debt collectors took more. They're coming for you. His name still binds us." Clara's gut twisted. His past, a ghost that wouldn't fade. Days later, 3 men in dark coats rode in, faces hard as flint. "Silas Grayson owes a blood debt," the leader barked. 10,000, or we take what's his." The Emporium, the shed, their life. Silas faced them, calm but steely. "I cut ties. That's not my bill." The men sneered, eyeing Clara. "Then she'll pay, in trade or toil." Rage flared in her. She stepped forward, voice low. "Touch me, and you'll regret it." Silas grinned despite the stakes. Her fire still burned. Frost Hollow circled tight, pitchforks, pans, a wall of defiance. The collectors lingered, but the town's glare sent them packing, tails low. "We'll be back," they spat. Clara turned to Silas. "We've fought worse." Winter blanketed the land, and they braced. Silas sold a hidden stash of old stock, enough to fortify the shed with stone, turning it into a fortress of thread and will. Clara taught the kids to weave warnings into rugs, secret codes for trouble. Spring thawed the frost, and with it came a stranger, not a thug, but a woman grey-haired with Silas's eyes. "I'm Aunt Tess," she said, voice trembling. "Mara lied. The debt's hers, not yours. I've proof." A ledger, yellowed, showed Silas free, his father's will twisted by greed. Tess stayed, mending family rifts with stories of a softer past. The collectors returned, but Tess met them, papers in hand. "Chase Mara, not him!" They cursed but rode off, defeated. Frost Hollow cheered, and Clara felt the weight lift. Silas's name finally his own. Summer bloomed, and they built anew. A library nook in the shed, stacked with tales of grit and grace. Tess read to the kids. Clara wove, Silas tilled, their hands rough with years, still fit like puzzle pieces. One dusk, as the sky flared pink, Clara hung a new tapestry, fire, fight, and family stitched bold. "Think they'll ever stop coming?" she asked, half smiling. Silas looped an arm around her. "Let 'em try. We've got roots too deep to pull." And they did. Decades on, Frost Hollow thrived, a speck on no map, but a beacon of stubborn love. Their hair silvered, steps slowed, but their fire unquenched. The blanket, now a relic, draped their porch swing, a testament to battles won. What's your call? Could you stand that heat? Ever faced a past that won't quit? Drop a yes if you dig in with them and spill. What's your fight? This tale's roaring. Smack that like, share it far, and toss a 300 if you're all in for more. Where's your corner of the globe? Keep the kindness blazing. Someone needs this flame.